So today I want to talk briefly about, of course, the legislative initiatives that you are all here to advance, but I want to give some insight, we'll say, into how to make your time here a little bit more effective. But before I do want to give a shout out to my guys from Alachua County and Gainesville. Where are you guys at? That was exceptionally quiet, and from what I heard about you guys last night at the bar, that did not do justice for what I know you were capable of as Florida men. Do we have any other Florida firefighters in the room? Okay. It's early yet. It's early. Don't worry. They're going to, by tonight, they'll have pub subs and riding alligators, and there'll be all kinds of crazy Florida man stuff going on, so don't worry. I was going to try to open up with a backdraft joke, but I couldn't really think of one. Believe it or not, Matt and I, we've been married and together for almost 10 years, and it wasn't until this year that I actually saw the movie. It was like a moment where he really was shocked and appalled, and so we're working through that. But it's crazy to me because firefighters and the fire service, they're so big in our communities and part of American culture, and you would think that that I would have seen it by now, but I hadn't. And so yeah, we're working on that. But everyone wants to take the element of the fire service and really romanticize it. But what people who are either married to the service, in the service, or around the service know is that the reality is a little bit more stark, a little bit more grim, especially the issues that you and your families and your departments face. So of course, just touching on some of the issues, particularly the ones that me, as both a member of Congress, but also as a firewife, I'm working on, I want to give you kind of a status update. And the first one is going to be this idea of frequent flyers. Every department in the country has frequent flyers. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. The guy in the back did 2 hands. Yeah, yes, you, right there. Are you from Florida? Because that's the kind of energy we typically have. Yikes. I can't even imagine. California. So obviously, this is an issue that every department across the country contends with, the idea of frequent flyers. However, there's not really been a way to address it because every year the EMS calls get greater, the fire calls get lower in some cases and areas. But the fact of the matter is that because of our broken healthcare system, people are using 911 as their primary care. That's a fair assessment, yeah? I know I'm right before lunch, so just interaction's great. Just, you can talk back, yes. All right, so given that dynamic where we now have 911 as primary care, there's some states that handle this better than others. In the state of Florida, for example, we have 2 licenses that these assisted living facilities can fall under, a hospitality license or a medical license. If you have ever been on one of those 2 a.m., 3 a.m. lift assist calls or a call for a fallen patient, it's probably because that facility falls under a hospitality license. So what we have been working on is identifying ways to help mitigate those liability issues that those facilities have, where you're not getting called out for a lift assist at 3 o'clock in the morning for someone who falls every single shift. That right there would take some of that burden off of you, and that is something that is completely outside of the realm of the fire service because it's all insurance and liability and healthcare. But you guys have been really the people who have been dealing with that on the back end, so we're looking at ways that we can address that. Additionally, this week, this is great news, our bill, the Next Gen 911 Communications Act that our office sponsored, is actually going to be passing the House of Representatives and the Senate and will become law codifying the Office of 911 Communications. Why that's important? It doesn't matter if you're in an urban or a rural area. If you get on the radio and you're not getting a response, that's a problem. And especially in some of our rural areas, communications amongst our first responders has been spotty at best. And so this is going to actually strengthen that. How many of you had your phones go down the AT&T a couple weeks ago? Okay. All right. A handful of you. How many of you have the AT&T FirstNet? Okay. All right, so that reauthorization is also coming up. We want to make sure that our first responders have priority when it comes to the wireless connectivity, especially in times of emergency, which is why Congress is really looking at ways that we can not only reauthorize it, but make sure that we keep that in place for the long term. I know everyone's talking right now about the SAFER grants and the AFG grants, and I get it. My office, we write letters of support for our departments left, right, and center. There's a lot of talk and a lot of concern about them not being reauthorized. This moment that you have during your visit to Washington is your chance to explain to members of Congress, which as a member of Congress, we don't know a whole lot. I will tell you honestly, you don't know what you don't know, and there are more members of Congress who have no idea about the first responder community. They talk like they do, but they have no idea. You being here is your opportunity to talk about why those grants are so important. Whether it was getting a second set of bunker gear, whether it was particulate blocking hoods, new air packs. It does not matter what your need was, or in the case of a SAFER grant, additional folks on board. This is your time to tell the story, and I'm going to dig into that a little bit later, talking about how you can effectively communicate with a member of Congress. But I would implore you, when you're talking about how these grants impact your department, talk about how it also impacts the community, your response time. That is something that members of Congress are going to be looking for, as well as their staff. Talking about next generation turnout gear, I know that there has been a lot of work done in studying the impacts of PFAS and ways that we can develop new turnout gear and figure out ways that it can be as effective. I personally have met with the CEOs of companies that are producing the fibers that are free of the chemicals. But of course, we need to make sure, in addition to that next generation gear being produced, that we have a second set. I don't know what the hell is going on in my neck of the woods, but there seem to be a lot of fires here recently, right, guys? Yeah. So we, for whatever reason, have been on this constant cycle of fires. And you guys know, you get back to the station, you're exhausted, you take your gear off, and if you've only got one set, you're going to be putting that same gear back on. That right there has been a massive contributor to the dangerous carcinogens being on your skin and some of the most sensitive parts of your body, which of course we all know the cancer rates amongst firefighters. They're through the roof. We have an opportunity through R&D funding and the funding for the research, but funding for the gear to make sure that not only do you have gear that is clear and safe from those types of harmful chemicals, but also a second set. So if you are running calls back to back to back, you're not having to put that same gear on and over and over and over again. And I know it's a big deal. People always back in the day wanted to have gear that was dirty because it was very sexy and masculine. We're married to y'all. We get it. You're sexy. You save people. It's cool. We don't need you to actually wear the dirty gear. To that end about the cancer registry, for years Congress neglected to actually fund the program that was studying the cancer and taking in that data. We have fixed that. This week we will be appropriating more funds into the cancer registry so that we can actually do the hard work of not only identifying the trends, but then working with our universities and other organizations to address cancer in the fire service. That also ties in with the life scans and other ways that we can catch these diseases early, that we can make sure that people have a fighting shot once they identify them. And on the ledge front, I'll wrap up with the final thought. My office has undertaken a project to address mental health awareness, both training and treatment within the first responder community. I know, again, I'm married to a firefighter. The culture in the fire service has been, it's a bunch of tough guys. You guys may do some peer-to-peer support, but we are living in a time where we are starting to finally recognize that our police and fire folks are being exposed over a sustained period of time of trauma that they have never seen in the military service. Now, the veterans community has done a remarkable job in ways that they can address PTSD, they can identify it, they can treat it. And that work has been critical in helping us identify ways that we can address the training and trauma treatment for our first responders. I think this is the next wave. And talking to some of my veteran friends who I serve in Congress with, they have said to me, now, and these are Navy SEALs. When I tell them I'm married to a firefighter, they say, ooh, that is the next wave that no one's talking about. That's the tsunami the next mental health crisis that no one wants to talk about. We have an opportunity, and what our office is doing is working on a block grant that we will then give to the states that will prepare people for what to expect as a first responder, but then how to deal with these situations and these encounters that you come across every single time you're on shift. That tied in with sleep deprivation, for those of you that are on 24/48s or 24/72s, this is all going towards a model where we are going to be making resiliency a key component to how we address this issue moving forward. So I know that that's a lot, and of course I've seen your packet. It's a great packet, lots of information in there about all the initiatives of the IAFF. But most importantly, I want to talk about how you can be a badass lobbyist for the next couple days. You are going to be meeting with members of Congress and their staff. Now, when you go in, the thing that is always helpful to a member of Congress, and again, I'm saying this just from my perspective, every member's a little different, but by and large, when you go in, start with your ask. I can't tell you how many meetings I have where people come in and they just want to word vomit for 20 minutes. Serious, word vomit for 20 minutes. And I get to the end, I'm like, and what's your ask? And it was something so simple, and I could have told them yes or no, depending what it was, but they felt the need to over-explain. When you walk in that room, in that member's office, lay out the ask, because that's the first thing that you want on the top of their piece of paper, because every staff, every member is going to have that written down, and that should be your top 3 asks. Don't leave a brochure and say, this is what we're looking at. Say, I want your member, I want you, Congresswoman, Congressman, well, whoever. I want you to co-sponsor this bill. I want you to go on the House floor and speak about this bill, and I need you to do this. You're going to follow up your asks with stories. Members of Congress, we are ADHD to the extreme. If there was a squirrel running down this little middle section here, I would be talking about it, because literally there are shiny rocks everywhere. We have such short attention spans because we have so many things coming at us that if you give us statistics, facts, that's nice. I won't remember it. Neither will any of my colleagues. Tell us a story, preferably a story from our district or from our state. That is how you get the message to stick. Tell a story and give an ask. Those are the 2 things. The connecting points, and this will set you above and beyond what other people are doing, because let me tell you, on the Hill this week, we have police officers, we have the credit unions, we have cancer advocates, we have probably half a dozen to a dozen major national organizations all lobbying on issues that they care about most. People are getting inundated with information, and I want you guys to shine without having to take your shirt off. It's a joke. I'm probably going to get arrested for sexual harassment because no one has a damn sense of humor in this town anymore. Thank you. For fuck's sake, Jesus. I can say that. Spend most of my time in a firehouse. But no, you want to have a real impact in these rooms. And so another way that you can be effective from the moment you step foot in the office is look for clues. If you walk into my office, which is affectionately the People's Office of Florida's 3rd Congressional District, go Gators, if you walk in, you will immediately see a massive 8-foot flag made out of fire hose. First clue, she's married to a firefighter. You'll also see a 13-foot gator skin hanging on the wall. She's pretty conservative, likes hunting, right? Like, you'll find clues because a member's office tells you everything you need to know about them. What photos are on the wall, what things they have sitting around. When you walk in, there are clues. Pick up on those clues, use them. That is how you build a relationship with that member and their team. You're gonna need that relationship because in order to get the things in your booklet done, you're gonna need that relationship, and it's gotta be solid. You have to be able to pick up the phone, call them, and have that relationship. All my guys, they've got my cell phone number. One of you bastards put it on a bathroom wall at a truck stop, though. I'm getting all kinds of weird messages. I'm gonna say it was one of the other guys who's not here. But you wanna have that connection. You wanna be able to pick up that phone. So you're in there, you're telling your stories, you're making your ask, you're picking up on the clues around the office. And the other thing that you should do is if you have your Class A's, wear them. If you have anything that is official, wear it. Because let me tell you, the VFW guys, they're walking around with their hats. The American Legion guys, they're walking around with their gear. And there is nothing, particularly women, there's nothing that members would like more than to take pictures with their firefighters. They want that photo. They want people to see them doing something with a beloved group of individuals from back home. Look the part. You want those photos circulating around the member's office. You want them to print them out and frame them and put them in the office, because then that is a continual reminder that they need to have your back just like you've had theirs back home. Your time here can be exceptionally well spent and productive, and I'm hoping it is, because it selfishly makes my job easier. I think that is one way that you can really simplify it and knock it out of the park this week and beyond. And of course, when you get back home, there's also work to be done. I'm going to say something that is a little uncomfortable for people. You're going to have to help on their campaigns. I don't like waving signs. I don't like knocking doors, and I don't like making phone calls. But campaigns are tough work. And the people who have to advance this legislation in Washington, again, based on nothing more than relationships and how much people like them or don't like them, they have to get reelected. If you back home are helping out by getting a group together, say you get A shift together, hey, we're gonna go wave signs at the busy intersections. Hey, we're gonna put out a text message to all of our union members. We're gonna do something to help this member in Washington advance their campaign. That makes your life 10 times easier. It's a little bit of effort, but you get so much out of it. And another thing that I've not heard many others do, offer to put together an advisory group. Myself, I just hosted 40 of my fire chiefs and city managers and county managers 2 weeks ago. Now, it was hot as hell because the AC in my office broke, so, we were sweating our balls off. I can't say that. Oh, sorry. Somebody said, sure you can. But we were all together talking about AFG, SAFER grants, all these issues. And in that, we also started talking about local issues, where they're having all sorts of local issues where I can then influence my local leaders. Why is that important? Because if I have folks that I can pick up the phone and call when I need an answer or an anecdote, it's there. Members are getting pulled in 20,000 different directions. You could be a savior by just organizing a group of chiefs, district chiefs, a couple of guys from the union. Put people in the room and say, hey, we just want to talk to you for 30 minutes or an hour. You have no idea the value add that you will have back home for that member of Congress and their team. If you're not doing that, you should. And I'll say the other thing. Again, this entire city is based on relationships. Your goal this week is not only to make a relationship with your member of Congress and your state's delegation, but with each other. We have an opportunity to do something remarkable for the fire service. Despite all that you hear on the news, with the gridlock and the bullshit, we have a real opportunity to advance meaningful legislation that will guarantee success for future generations. I couldn't be more proud to be a fire wife. I want to thank you guys for being here, for doing the inconvenient thing of coming up to Washington. I know that there's homelessness and crime and bullshit and everywhere, but thank you for dealing with the mess, because it matters. It matters back home. I look forward to seeing you guys on the Hill today and tomorrow. I know you're going to knock it out of the park. And with that, thank you for allowing me to join you today.